Well, we are back. Another episode, Darryl Worley of Sounds Like Life with the one and only Darryl Worley. The one and only. The one and only. We're in Union City today at Total Tech Solutions.
Man, driving up here, first of all, I've never seen traffic like this. This must be a holiday that we don't know about because, man, I came the way that I thought would be the less traffic, and I just was the whole time I was in a line of traffic. I've never seen anything like it.
Well, see, I wondered, but then I knew my thought was, well, weather's beautiful. Everybody's out hunting. That's what it was this morning. But then I realized if it was the right season, you wouldn't be here today. So,
well, I got news for you. It is the right season, and I
know you were out yesterday, weren't you?
I almost didn't make it. I was out yesterday.
Did you go this morning?
I did not.
Did not.
I couldn't get it all
together.
I came in off the road, and I sacrificed this morning for yesterday evening because I'm watching this big buck that I want my daughter to shoot. But I told her she wouldn't get out and help me with a couple of things, and I said, okay. Then if he walks up on me with my bow, he's dead, and I'm definitely gonna take him. No, Dad. I said, yep, that's the way it works. When you won't get out of bed and help me do stuff, I shoot your deer. But anyway, so I traded yesterday afternoon for this, and I had the best hunt, man. I had two doe come running at me. Mm-hmm. One of them kind of wide off. One of them came directly at me, and she got within like 6 feet of me before she even knew I was there. And even then, she was just kind of like, "Oh, I probably shouldn't run into him." Went off to the left, and I'm watching them up in the field with my binoculars, and I turned and looked down the trail that they came running from, thinking, "I wonder what spooked them." And here comes this monster bobcat. He was taller than that guitar case.
Really?
And I think we caught one as a baby in a live trap right out there by my house, and I was pretty close to that place. It could have been him because we
Really?
released him back after we were burning off the field, and he came out of the smoke all disoriented. And so we just put him in a cage to kind of rescue him. And then later on that afternoon, we released him, and he's probably still. Man, I was floored. He came down that trail. He was so big. Yeah. But just getting out there and I didn't see the bucks yesterday. I saw them day before yesterday. So, it's that time of year.
So that's good because
my neck is swelling.
Is it?
Yeah.
The beard.
Well, I hide it with the beard.
There you go.
Yeah, definitely.
I saw this morning on Facebook,
Cletus?
Your buddy Cletus T. Judd. I got to pull this up so we can watch it as a group here. Mike will do all his production magic and let all the fans watch this. If you don't follow Cletus T. Judd, go do it. He's on social media. Kimberly shared this. That's how it came on my page.
But he's
they say nothing in life is perfect.
Nothing in life
No
is
one
perfect.
individual is perfect. No one thing is perfect. We are all created with flaws. And I used to agree with that 100%. That is until about 2 Mondays ago when I saw Darryl Worley's beard.
What an idiot.
Sheer perfection. I ain't never saw a beard on a man like Darryl Worley's got. I mean, look at mine. This is a little bit longer here. Got some hair shooting back up that way. I'm at the barbershop now. Fix to go here and get it trimmed up. And I'm going to ask for the Darryl Worley special is what I'm going to do. Because I ain't going to lie to you. We was sitting there at the Eddie Montgomery golf benefit. John Michael and everybody was there. And I glanced over and they was talking about Darryl's beard. And I happened to glance over and flawless. Not one gray hair was pointed toward right field. Nothing. It was all going in the right direction. It all laid smoothly where it was supposed to lay.
My beard.
Yeah. And I became envious. And I asked him, and he would not disclose his secrets.
Heck no.
Other than to look at me and say, son, you can't argue with perfection. And I had to agree with him. He's a good man, a great friend, known him for years, great singer, great songs. But his beard tops it all. Google you a picture of Darryl Worley. Send him a message. Let him know you love his beard today. And don't say nothing about mine. I love you, DW, and your beard. We'll see.
Oh, man.
It doesn't get much better than that. I
He
can't wait
is
to
a
have him
trip.
on the podcast. That's
He
gonna be a
he
fun.
told me this morning that's why he called me, was he wants to
be
do
on
it
it.
really bad. Yeah.
Good. Well, we'll get it
That'd
set
be
up.
great.
And
He's one funny human being, and every bit of that is just authentic. That's just who he is.
Yeah.
You know, he don't have to think about it.
Mm-mm.
It's just very real. I used to. We had times in our life when we spent more time together because on the road with certain acts or whatever, and we just see each other more. And I miss him a lot. He's a great guy. He's dealt with addiction and is doing really, really good. 20 years sober. Just an incredible human being, and he gives back, like we do. He's going to Cumberland Heights here real soon to go and speak to those guys, and he said he would stop back through Lawrence County and see our guys at Eight Oaks Recovery. So that may happen. I told him, I said, Cletus, just know ahead of time that we're talking about down yonder in the woods.
down there.
West Point, Tennessee, baby.
Well, it's funny because the last time we were together, we spent a whole day in Nashville, I guess a couple weeks ago now. And, this is my first year to try the beard thing. I'd never tried it before in my life. And so I told Jessica and my kids, they were the one that was kind of egging it on. And I get in there and I'm prepped to shave it off. And she said, "Why are you shaving your beard?" I said, "Well, I went around Darryl Worley today, and every person we ran into, I bet 50 people said, Darryl, I just love that beard." We had people touching his beard, grown men stroking the man's beard. I said, I got to get rid of this thing because mine ain't cutting it.
Shoot, man,
it's decent, but it's not the Darryl Worley beard. So.
I didn't know you weren't a beard wearer because it just looks natural on you.
Never had. This is my first. I started
That's
it.
pretty cool.
Well, I started at Missoula.
Yeah.
When we went there,
Yeah.
I thought, I'm going to Montana. I think I just give me a good excuse to try the beard
Looks
thing.
good, man. You got a good beard.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But speaking of him being busy, that day in Nashville, got to meet Lori Morgan with you. How cool of a human being is she?
Oh, she is just something else, man. She's royalty, when it comes to country music. And I feel very, very blessed to have her as a friend, first of all, but just that connection and
A genuine human being.
Yeah, if she's
And there's
anything
no filter,
at all,
boy.
she's that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I was a big fan of her dad. He was a big opera star, George Morgan, and just really, really, really. I thought it was cool to go and do her podcast, and the fact that she let you guys shoot some.
So that's what we'll be putting some of the B-roll of that.
Well, I think
what
it's
we're talking
SOB
right now.
roll.
We did brand that day.
SOB roll.
SO-B-roll.
Yeah, that is so B-roll.
So B-roll.
Of course.
Now we know if it's his B-roll, we know what those letters really stand for. But I think a shirt that says the camera crew is gonna have a shirt that says crew. We getting the SOB roll.
So B-roll.
So
I love it.
So we had some fun that day. Did some other radio shows and just got to experience a day in the life of Darryl Worley, which is always fun for me, and it helps me as I kind of help throw out ideas for this show and the different things you're doing. And I know right after that you were in Paris, Tennessee when I wasn't there. You were with Miss June.
That's true.
And the Country Kids Christmas. I think it's the first time you've played there that I wasn't able to jump in and help. And y'all raised some money, son.
Man, what an incredible group of people.
Yeah.
Of course, I knew it would be AmVets. I mean, what do you expect?
Hard to beat those guys.
And the poker run, we drove around, and made some of those stops.
Yeah.
And most of those places were like and I'm always careful when I throw the term beer joint out because I don't want anybody thinking. So
it's not a negative thing in our world.
So let's just call them little roadhouses or honky tonks. We went to some places and I told everybody, I'm like, this reminds me of how this all got started for me because that's where you hone your craft and try your chops out on people and you walk in there expecting to know who you're going to meet, and that's exactly who you meet.
Yeah,
that's
cool.
a great thing.
Well, and what I love, and you and I talked about this being part of our relationship, is when I'm in Savannah, just like when you're in Paris, I walk up to somebody and meet him and go, it's all the same.
Oh yeah,
I know that when I walk into Savannah, that's that person I know from Paris. That's they fit that role. And
it's funny you say that because you'll remember this, but the very first time I came up to do one of those days with you guys in Paris, I was looking at the map, literally a paper map, not the stupid GPS, and you could not draw a square straight line any straighter from Savannah, Tennessee to Paris, Tennessee. It is just north. That's all there is to it. It's straight as an arrow, and it doesn't lean this way, and it doesn't lean. It's absolutely straight up. And I said, from north to south, West Tennessee's all the same.
It really is.
It's really true.
And then I guess a week or two after that, we got to see each other at the Jack, the World Championship of Barbecue.
Yes.
You got to play for all the competitors, man, and I hated it. I know you had a
night.
That time of year, you've got 900 events, and so you played another fundraiser the next day. But I got to go around, and we were sampling food from everybody. And there's Darryl here, Darryl. These guys that competed absolutely ate up the fact that Darryl Worley was there and playing, and it was chaos because the
what an
the
event.
venue barbecue, they call it Barbecue Hill.
Yes.
At Jack Daniels, it's kind of a private area overlooking Lynchburg, and it's just beautiful.
It literally
and
does.
Greg and his whole team with Jack Daniels and Brown Foreman just absolutely, we've created a great partnership with them for the Blue Spire Kitchen, the other project that our company's got going on, and it's neat to see it all kind of cross.
Right.
I call it cross-contamination, but
exactly.
That's the West Tennessee in me. So we like to have fun with all that. I know you guys, put on a heck of a show, and always fun to see in a trio setting. And then you've just been, feel like it's been nonstop. You're about to slow down a little bit in a couple weeks, aren't you? About the holiday season, you slow down.
Yeah, December, we've had so many offers, and I usually take the whole month off just because – the family does without me until then, and they kind of expect me to be home some. And so, but we wound up booking a few dates in December man, my business has come to life.
It's growing. It's growing.
Last quarter was my best quarter in 12 and a half years.
Yeah.
And that's saying something, buddy, and we've worked hard through the lull. You have to.
I don't know how y'all done it.
You have to, through COVID and all of it. Well, we were the guys that didn't quit working.
Right.
We were the ones that said, we'll take all work, send it over here. And it wound up being the best business move for us ever because, they had a lot of acts, if you call me a mid-level act. So they had a lot of acts hired that were between mid and the upper level hired. And when they called and said, will you come in and do this? They've shut down for the whole year. I said, yeah, heck yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what will you do it for? I said, not a penny less than what you offered them, and that's it.
That's
what we're doing. Yeah. And guess what? We hadn't gone backwards.
Yeah.
Thank you, God.
That's a blessing that came from a blessing that came from COVID.
Yes.
So
bring it on.
And I think you might be a little more busy this Christmas season than you're going to anticipate. Have you heard the song that you and Andy Griggs cut yet?
Man alive.
Son.
Yes, I have. And I haven't heard the mixed version. I have the mixed version. I just haven't had a chance to listen to it.
It is exactly what people are going to need this Christmas season because it's and the video we're getting ready to shoot the video and we got to go over all that too. It's you two knuckleheads in your truck flipping through the radio, and then all of a sudden y'all start singing, Daddy looked a lot like Santa, and just we're gonna have a big time, and we've got this cool idea for the music video for it, and it's just I think it's gonna be a hit because people need that fun, they need that excitement,
and it is that.
I love a good marriage, I love a good ballad, but this year let's just have some fun, folks.
Yeah,
we're gonna need it.
It's good, man. I mean, I called him back. A lot of the people that have played out over on the road with him over the years are playing on that.
Yeah.
They're studio quality musicians, don't get me wrong. I'm just saying it takes longer sometimes to do that. I did it once with my band, and it wound up being a lot more expensive than it would have been to just go in with the A players and knock it out. It was worth it, but man, this thing sounds. It gets that
vibe. So for me, new to him and new to producing music on that side of it, it allowed us to capture that Andy Griggs that everybody knows from his major hits.
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
Band sounds just like him.
Well, and I told
it's
him,
like you with the crew.
Yes.
When the crew's on there, we know who you can hear the crew.
And I told Andy, I said, I want to kind of be the anchor in this version of this song, because it needs to have an anchor point that so that we don't get so far away from Buck or whatever you want to talk about. And so and also because it's on his project, it gave him the opportunity to. I said, so you just go as nuts as you want to go, and you can hear on this record how Andy Griggs can sing.
Boy can sing.
That boy can sing.
And the two of y'all together,
man, it's fun.
So that'll be coming out right before Thanksgiving. So it will come out after this airs. So you'll
Christmas
be seeing,
single. All
you'll
right.
be seeing plenty of stuff from us on that. Speaking of content, so I did a little math yesterday because I knew we were going to be getting together, and I was just thinking, well, we've been doing this, we've been having fun. Is it working? That's a great question.
Well, yeah.
Are people watching it? Because I know I get texts, you get texts, people talking about it
constantly.
You will never guess how many plays we have had on social media in the 2 months we've been airing these things every other week. And with our reels and all the content we've been doing, we're right at 520,000 views already.
Really?
Look at
No,
that
I
smile on
wouldn't
his
have
face.
guessed that.
So we've got the reels are just taking it off. We appreciate everybody clicking and sharing, and it helps. Y'all fixing it. Y'all haven't seen it yet. Well, you will by the time this airs.
great.
Sling Blade voice will probably double those numbers for us. But
You ought not to say that.
yeah, so we're having fun. I think that's the root of it. People are loving seeing it on all your platforms, but your Instagram and TikTok.
500.
Isn't that crazy?
That is
2 months,
nuts,
man. Every other week.
I
So
mean,
it's time to pour some
who would have
gasoline on this
ever
thing.
thought it? Not me. You,
I
yeah.
did.
Well,
That's what I
good
told
for you.
I was like, man, we got to do this because it's you. It's natural. We didn't, you don't see you got my phone here because I got to watch his time so that we don't miss dinner tonight. But,
Wow.
it's not scripted. It's not.
Oh no, we're never going to do that.
The only thing that's scripted is we're going to take a quick bathroom break and then bring on two of your friends you got here with us. And
Absolutely.
I'm excited to hear about this. So
Me too, brother.
let's take a quick break and we'll be right back. All right, we're back from our little break we took there. And Darryl Worley, you got some friends here with us. And I always like in our shows for you to introduce them because you clearly know them better than me. So we've had a few minutes to talk and chat and just get to know each other. And I'm looking forward to this. So
Yeah, man.
tell us who you got here with us.
Well, right here immediately to my left, Jerrod Menz. Jerrod is a very close friend of mine. We worked together on a project over in Lawrence County, Tennessee, called 8 Oaks Recovery. We started a small rehab facility. It's way out in the woods in West Point, Tennessee. We didn't do it by ourselves. I just had a complete mental block.
David Morgan.
David Morgan.
See, he knew. That's why you can tell he's your friend. He's filling in your mental
Thank
block
God.
for you.
Pastor David Morgan, and he is also
County executive.
county executive. We worked on his campaign too. This was his brainchild years ago, and he's been working it steadily with his congregation and all this other stuff. So Jerrod and I got involved, and so that facility is still operating. And Jerrod and I have just done all kinds of stuff together. He was involved in a couple different gun stores, and he had a manufacturing company there in Lawrenceburg that called Head Down Firearms, which I actually have one of those, by the way, a 7.62 Grendel, and one of my favorite fun rifles. But anyway, he's here today to share a story with us, and he brought a friend, Brandon Taylor, who is the head of the what would you call it, chairman?
Chairman of the Lawrence County Republican Party.
Exactly, and
It's a busy time of year for you, for sure.
boy.
So.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
he's got, just from our conversations before we got started on all this, he's got a lot of stuff going on right now. So we're absolutely honored and thrilled to have both you guys with us on the show today. And I'm going to set this up just a little bit. And if I say anything that's not exactly accurate, you can take it from there. And if you have any comments before we just completely turn it over to Jerrod, but the reason that I felt very passionate about getting Jerrod on, when our last presidential election, I actually tried to get Jerrod on Huckabee and Hannity and some other, and we kind of waited till it was late in the game to start that. And I didn't know all the details to this story. But Jerrod's life was affected directly by some of Kamala Harris's antics when he was running the largest rehab facility in the United States, American Addiction Centers. Is that correct?
Second largest, but yes.
Okay, well,
Got to be fact checked. I like that.
when its own sounds like life, we just call it.
Yeah,
No,
whatever.
I'm kidding. So, I guess at that time it was second largest,
Yeah.
which is huge. They had an incredible business going there and doing a lot of good to help people in recovery.
Mm-hmm.
And so I heard this story through Jerrod, how as a attorney general in California, how her how I guess this is going to open up a can of worms where people can see what she's really made out of. And I feel like that anybody has a story, it should be something that they can share, because we live in America, and this is a story that doesn't need to continue to go untold, because when you hear these real life stories about what people are capable of in these situations, it makes you kind of sit back and go, I'm not sure that that's the person that I want running the nation, you know. So we felt really. I've been so excited about this particular episode, and I think people are going to get a little education here, and I think it's important. So, man, thank you for coming today.
Hey, thanks for having me.
And being willing to share this with us. And, you know, we may wind up getting this to the right people, and this thing could it could definitely make a big difference in what we've got coming up. So, did you want to?
No, y'all go ahead. I've got some questions just with the recovery center that I wanted to know about, but we'll you teed it up right there, Hoss. I
okay.
like that.
Well, we'll turn it over to you, and Brandon. Between the two of you, you absolutely feel free to jump in and interject, and because y'all are going to know more about the political side of some of this stuff. I mean, I've got a lot of questions, but some of them I won't ask.
Well, and that's one of the things that's fun about this is you'll see genuine questions. I mean, there's some things that I just want to know. You know, I'd love hearing what they're doing in Lawrence County, and hearing, you know, on the RNC podcast that we had when we were there, and learning some things that maybe we disagreed with, but it was good to hear people that are in it every day that have some of those opinions, whether we agree or not.
Well, it helped me. And this will as well. Travis has a little bit of a knack for seeing in between the lines some, and I don't have that so much. You know, a lot of this stuff is so cut and dried with me. Like, I just want people to make educated decisions on things. And some of this stuff for me, I'm just like, what, you lost your mind? Yeah. You know, and then I'll somebody will say something, and I'll go, oh, I didn't really think about it like that. So that's probably not going to happen a whole lot today, but but anyway, we'll just turn you guys loose, and you can relate this story to us. And I can tell you right now that my listeners are gonna they're gonna be sitting on pins and needles, man. So thank you for being here.
Thank you. And I know we got a half hour, 45 minutes. It's a complicated story, but I appreciate Darryl and you having me on to tell it. You know, I think that I'm going to set it up a little bit, but I think it's an example of the kind of lawfare that the Biden-Harris administration has launched against Donald Trump, and they use the courts to their advantage. Okay. You know what I mean? Like, let's keep Trump off the ballot. Let's make him a felon. Let's hurt. But my story is more about making money. And the courts were, I'm going to illustrate how the courts were used to really come after my company to make a lot of money. And I'm going to set it up a little bit. You know, I started a small company in Southern California, and I started with 12 drug rehab beds. And, you know, I had a little outpatient office, grew it up to 200 or 300 beds. I partnered up with a gentleman here in Nashville, and that's when we changed the name to American Addiction Centers. And we grew the company to about 1,300 beds. and we became publicly traded on the New York Stock Exchange.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where this comes in. I know a lot of the listeners probably don't exactly understand short selling. It's a complicated thing, but just to make it simple, you can bet for a stock and you can bet against the stock.
Absolutely.
And so basically shorting a stock means you think the price is going to go down, so you bet against it. Well, if you take American Addiction Center stock and we'll get into what the indictment was all about, but if you take American Addiction Center stock and look at it 3 to 4 months, this is all public record, 3 to 4 months before the indictment came out, there was about 200,000 to 300,000 shares shorted, which is regularly at any given point, somebody's betting against Tesla, somebody's betting against IBM or GE or whatever. Like there's a certain percentage short. Well, about 3 months before, there was 200,000 to 300,000 shares shorted. 3 weeks before, there was about 3 million shares shorted. Well, there was only 22 million available shares. We were a fairly small company for being publicly traded on the New York Stock Exchange. And so
3 weeks before, how many?
About 3 million. And like I said, somebody can look this up. If somebody's interested, it was AAC on the New York Stock Exchange. I don't know the exact dates, but you can look up the date of the. And so basically what happened was I am the only, at the time the indictment came out, I was the president, but at the time the incident happened, I'm the only president of a publicly traded healthcare. I'm the only president of a healthcare company in the state of California that's ever been indicted for second-degree murder of a client. So a client came into our facility, and he had substance abuse issues. He came to treatment, and the first night he was there, he passed away.
Okay.
Like I didn't know his name. I mean, at the time of that event happened, because it happened 5 years prior to the indictment. The indictment wasn't so when I was a privately held company, nobody was interested in indicting me for it. But when the company transformed, became much larger. And so, but the company had about 300 beds. Like, I didn't know the name of every client coming in every day. And so, and an element of second-degree murder is intent.
Yeah.
And so, obviously, it doesn't even, the crime doesn't even make sense but what does make sense to the people that filed the indictment was my stock went from $44 a share, which the company had $1 billion market cap at the time, at $44 a share to $22 a share overnight. So the folks that bet against the company, those 3 million shares, they made about $22 a share, or about $250 million. So in 72 hours from the time the indictment came out until the stock was affected to $22 a share, there was about $250 million made. And from the research I did, you can't exactly track every person that shorted a stock. Like, you can get a list of everybody that owns a stock. You can't get a list of everyone that bet against the stock, which is probably an issue in the system.
Yeah.
But from what we gather, from what the attorneys that we hired and stuff, it seems as if it was out of a hedge fund that was out of San Francisco, ironically, where Kamala Harris's political base was from, and they have offices in Atlanta as well. And, the case was just so bizarre. I had top legal counsel. I mean, in between myself and the company, we probably spent about $10 million on my defense. I probably spent about $2 million, and the company probably spent about $8 million. In between private investigators, and I wasn't the only person that was indicted.
Right.
There was multiple. The company itself was indicted. The program director, some of the line staff was indicted, and obviously we beat it. A judge threw the murder indictment out in about 4 months, and then the elder abuse case dragged on a little bit longer because judges have a tendency to split the baby. Like, they're not going to throw the whole case out.
Right.
But my attorney also told me, I was indicted by a grand jury, which in California, grand juries are a little bit different in Tennessee. In California, you don't get any defense in a grand jury. And
really?
Yeah, you don't even necessarily know that you're under indictment. And that's the thing. If they would have indicted me, if the prosecutor would have signed the indictment, I would have had a preliminary hearing.
Totally different situation.
And the thing is, my attorney told me he can't say that I have the only murder indictment that was ever thrown out by a judge in the state of California that was done by a grand jury. He said, but he never have heard. So like a grand jury indicts you, judges are very hesitant to throw that out.
Right.
Because it's like, hey, a jury voted on it, take it to the box. It was such a bad indictment that the judge actually threw
that out.
The indictment out. But by that time, the money was made.
And it was her that handed it down.
She was the Attorney General of the state of California. I mean, she wasn't personally like showing up in the courtroom, but there was a lot of things that was really weird about my case. Like,
and you're saying she had access to that knowledge?
Of course.
Absolutely. Well, there's a couple things that I also want to say is the company that I ran was in Riverside County, California, which is right north of San Diego. Mm-hmm. So the judicial district that we would run in, California is a very large state. You know, there's 30, 40 million people live in California, very different than a lot of other states. So they actually have districts. The Attorney General actually has an office in San Diego County. Riverside County is part of that district. The prosecutor that prosecuted me was from the Sacramento office. So every time I had a hearing, they had to put him on a plane, and he had to fly to Ontario Airport, stay overnight, stay in a hotel, even though they have a prosecutor's office in San Diego. So, like, why was someone out of the main office
not taking care? Yeah,
the prosecutor on the case? Like, they handpicked the person to prosecute me, which is like really odd. You know, and so there's just a lot of things about the case. It was a novel case. You know, it doesn't happen all the time. So, yeah.
So you're okay. So let me again.
So yeah.
And I told you this earlier when we started. I knew enough, but I didn't want the full story because I like to process things so that I can ask genuine questions. And so basically, not to laugh at your situation, that's not why I'm laughing.
Yeah.
You're telling me, and this makes sense now why you're bringing this.
Well, I was dying to get this story on here.
Yeah, because you're telling me.
I wanted you to know.
And I didn't. I guess I didn't know. It makes a lot of sense because of red states, blue states, and those who let you represent yourself, and those whatever. She was able to make that happen legally, and then her fingerprints are on that. And I'm assuming it's. I mean, you wouldn't be saying all of this if this were just us buddies sitting around shooting the stuff. It's.
She was the elected Attorney General, and something that else is interesting. I mean, here's the thing: there's a lot of things I'm going to lay out there. Like I said, I spent a lot of money on private investigators and attorneys. I can tell you a lot of high level facts, and you can connect the dots.
Yeah.
Right prior to this, American Addiction Centers did an acquisition. I'm not going to talk about the company's name that we acquired, but we acquired another. Like, we were a publicly traded company, and we did an acquisition for about $70 million. We bought a marketing company that owned websites, that owned phone numbers and stuff like that. Well, interestingly enough, the attorney that represented the marketing company was Camilla Harris's husband.
No way.
So Camilla Harris's husband had intimate knowledge of the structure of our company, the value of our stock, and obviously a company that has 22, like, if Disney got indicted for something tomorrow, their stock would go down like $2. They're Disney. They're a $1 trillion company. But $1 billion is a lot of money. Don't get me wrong. But $1 billion, we're doing about $330 million a year in revenue. That is very small company on New York Stock Exchange. So the smaller the company is, the more likely you are to be a short attack. Like, think about like something that's, when this happened, everyone wasn't as familiar with shorts. But if you look at today, if you look at GameStop, GameStop's kind of like the famous short attack. Right. The thing is, if you're going to go for a company, you're not going to try to, you're not going to wake up tomorrow morning and go, okay, we're going to put some bad media out about Apple, and those stocks going to go in half overnight. That's not going to happen. Yeah. You're going to go for your smaller, your small cap stocks.
Vulnerable.
Yeah. And so Enhoff was the attorney that was the attorney. I mean, I don't want to say opposition attorney. It was a acquisition, but he was the attorney. It wasn't like his law firm. it wasn't like, yeah, he kind of hung out with these guys. He was the guy that like our attorneys were negotiating with for this acquisition. So he would know
everything.
Hey, let's put it.
How is that legal?
Let's put it. Well, you know what's interesting about that? Let's put it this way. He probably legally could not have bought American Addiction Center stock at the time because he would have been considered an insider because he knew more about the company. But, and I ain't saying he shorted the stock, and I ain't saying he recommended anyone short, but
it just all does.
He had a ton of information on the stock, and then like 2 or 3 months later, this happens. And I mean, all of this stuff, like if anybody Googles the name of the company and says acquisitions we did, all this stuff is, and he was their attorney. Like I've met him. The guy that we bought the company from. I remember
him saying this from before, but it just now came back.
The guy that we bought the company from, obviously he was affected because he did part cash, part stock. So he was negatively affected by this because he got stock in the transaction. And like, he like golfed with Camilla Harris's husband and like, hey, what's going on here? You know, and I mean, obviously he wasn't going to say like, I can't talk to you about that. But like the guy that we bought the company from, because he stayed on and he continued to work for American Addiction Centers, like he knew him. I've met him. I ain't going to say I know him, but like the guy that we bought the company from knew Camilla Harris' husband. So it's like, okay, they had her family had very detailed knowledge of the company. This novel indictment. And like I said, I mean, it's
that they wound up throwing out that a grand jury.
A grand jury indicted me. A judge threw the indictment out.
Absolutely.
And actually at the conclusion of the case, so basically I'll run you all the way through the case so nobody says I didn't disclose as much as I could in a short period of time. So basically there was 2 charges. There was second-degree murder and elder abuse. And so the judge kind of split the baby when they threw it out. And just to note, this is how ridiculous this is. Like during the indictment process, I was under indictment. I was out on $1 million bail. I had to post $1 million bail to not be in jail. And I would go into court at the time, you know, and I had a little kid, and I'd be like, hey, I want to go on a Disney cruise that goes to the Bahamas. And the judge would let me leave the country. The judge let me go to Mexico. The judge let me go to the Bahamas. And the prosecutor was furious, but just to give you a concept of what the judge thought, they didn't take my passport. You know, regularly, like you had $1 million bail, they're going to take your passport. They did not even, it wasn't even like they took my passport and gave it to me. And actually, this has nothing to do with the case, but this is actually really funny. You'll enjoy this. We're in the court one time, and the judges and my lawyer, I had to go to court to ask to leave the country. So we go to court, and the judge, the prosecutor goes, well, this guy's left the country twice before. This is ridiculous. This is a serious charge, blah, blah. And my lawyer, literally, really funny guy, he says this in court. He said, the guy's going on a Disney cruise. What adult would not want to come home and get off that cruise? Like, what's the guy going to do? He's going to like Castaway Key. Like, where's he going to go?
Right.
But anyway, like that's
I know all about Castaway Key.
But that's how serious the judge took it. I believe I was allowed to leave the country like over about the 8-month time because after they threw the murder charge out, the other charge still was stood. I left the country like 4 or 5 times. I went to Mexico. I went to the Bahamas. And so anyway, we went through all of that, and okay, so I was going to give a conclusion of the case. So basically, the lowest level employee that was indicted, there was 5 people that were indicted, but the house manager that actually was around the client, we actually took it to the box. And what happened was, so at that time, the only charge that was withstanding was elder abuse, and it was 11-1 to acquit. They could have retried because in California it has to be unanimous, so it was considered a hung jury, but it was 11-1. So 11-1, they regularly aren't going to retry. Like it was 11 for not guilty, and 1 person was for guilty. And so after that, so that guy was off at that case because they weren't going to retry. So we're kind of like, well, obviously you can't win this if you can't beat the lowest level guy. And then what we did was we went into mediation with them, and I said, hey, as long as I don't take a felony, as long as I can still own guns, I have no interest in, because each case was that case cost us about $2 billion to try. So if we would have tried all 5 cases, we would have spent another like $8 million. Right. So it's kind of like, hey, as long as I took a misdemeanor false advertising charge. I didn't even pay a fine. Like I paid $50,000 in investigation fees. So they didn't call it a fine. They called it investigation fees. So I paid $50,000. I took a misdemeanor, and it was over, and I can still own guns and go on with my life and not spend $2 million. And they knew they were going to lose. Like they already tried the case of the guy that was actually with the guy, met the guy, did everything. They knew that, but they weren't going to let us off with nothing. But like I said, it just died. But in the meantime, the private equity firm made about $250 million.
Yeah,
like
that's
$250 million.
They knew they were going to lose, but they didn't.
They didn't. Yeah, they didn't lose. Like they did that.
They didn't care if he left the country or not.
Yeah,
no, exactly.
Big guy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's an example. And when you see, this was 10 years ago. But if it's an example when you see what they're doing to Trump. Like, you know what? We can't beat you at the ballot box.
Right.
But here's the thing. They know how to beat people in the courtroom. And here's the thing. With Trump, they don't care that all this stuff gets thrown out 2 years later. They go, you know what? Donald Trump's a felon. Well, yeah, the appellate court throws it out. And CNN and the New York Times, they put that on page 37, but page 1 was Donald Trump's a felon.
Absolutely.
So they're experienced at lawfare.
Yeah. Man, imagine, try to wrap your head around this. If there's that kind of dirty dealings going on at that level of government, imagine what's happening in Washington, D.C.
Well, we talk about, we read the stuff. And this isn't just one side of the aisle. But
no, that's right.
We do hear about Nancy Pelosi and her husband are very good at trading on the New York Stock Exchange. And so it's like the amount of money and both sides, but both sides do it. There are,
that's right.
Both sides are trading on information that and hey, I was the president of a company that traded on the New York Stock Exchange. They make you go to, I wouldn't say they make you go to classes, but your lawyer comes in and the law firm for the company comes in and tells you what you can and can't do. These congressmen, these politicians, they have all kind of insider information that they manufacture and they trade on. And if you did that as a business person, you would go to the penitentiary. Yeah. You would go to the penitentiary. And so, I think there's a lot of things this story kind of ties in. It kind of ties in on politicians' insider trading. And it's just, to them, it's no big deal. That's just what they do. You know what I mean? And also, like I said, the lawfare of hey, we'll beat you in the courtroom.
But look at Pete Rose.
Right.
And Martha Stewart. When they do.
So is Pete Rose going to go to the Hall of Fame?
I think
do I think that he will?
Passed away.
I think that he will now that he's
That's what happens to all of us after we pass away.
Yeah.
Johnny Cash. If I were his family, I would decline it.
Oh, I wouldn't take it.
If I was Pete Rose's family, I'd decline it.
Oh.
Because you know what? You didn't let my daddy get to do that while he was alive.
I agree.
Nothing's changed.
That's a win.
You just wanted to prove that you could wait till he died to put him in there. No, sir.
And when you say no to it, to it, that's a win.
That's a win.
Yeah.
That's an opportunity.
That's not a
because
draw.
There's
that's
not one person in this country that would argue he deserved to be in the Baseball Hall of Fame based on him as an athlete.
Well, the irony with that kills me is, they have gambling ads on during baseball now. They have the players doing ads.
It's exactly what.
But Pete Rose, I'm not saying the guy's a saint, but he was a good baseball player.
Oh,
no question.
And at some point,
no question, he should be in the Hall of Fame.
Absolutely.
Flipping that back to politics, because that's one of the things, Brandon, you were talking about a minute ago, and I'll let you elaborate on that.
Sure.
Everybody wants to beat Trump up, and they want to beat up both candidates. I'll just say both candidates. Nitpicking personal things that have happened. This person did this. I don't like how they did that. I got a family with 3 kids at home. Who's going to lower my grocery bill?
Right.
Who's going to lower my gas bill? I've got parents that are aging.
Well, you already have.
How am I going to take care of them?
You already have the answer to that, because the one that's running has been in office for 3.5, 4 years, and it's gone straight up until, of course, 3 months out. Then to me, this is the most for everyday common people. And I said this to you recently, just before a podcast we shot. I said, if you're really, really struggling with this, let me give you something on a very basic level that should clear some things up. If they've got the power to drop gas prices and diesel prices right before the election, why couldn't they have done it the whole time? Why have I had to pay? Like, I'm running constantly.
Yeah.
That's a huge expense for me. And I remember looking at it and going, it's going to cost me over $100 every time I fill this up. And it wasn't that way when Trump was in. I'm one of those people that I look at that and go, that's the same for eggs, bread, milk, the whole deal.
And they knew we were in trouble.
Right.
The Fed gave her a gift of a rate cut just a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a huge rate cut, even more than what was expected. I mean, you can ask for what you want for Christmas and then get twice as much. That's pretty nice. But,
exactly.
Talking about weaponizing the court, though, I'm going to tag in on this. You've had a presidential candidate, Joe Biden, who was literally on the ballot. How could you get a candidate to remove himself from the ballot? Well, his son has been in and out of courtrooms for the last 6 months. And I'm not saying that this is what happened, but we're seeing weaponization of the court system. How could you get a candidate that was an incumbent on the ballot? He was elected to remove himself. The media started screaming for him to step down. We've seen, Chuck Schumer. We've seen Nancy Pelosi start saying, you need to remove yourself. He refused. Yeah. That was not his initial reaction. But we're seeing, Hunter Biden in and out of the court systems. What's going on inside of our political system to make a incumbent president? And it's not like he's a no-namer. I mean, he served as vice president for 8 years. He's been in the political system forever. And now he wants to remove his name from the roster?
Well, and it's interesting. And this is something that we brought up earlier, and I'll throw it there. He's been in office for 40, 50 years, Biden has, between different offices.
Absolutely.
He wasn't that far off when he got started. He was a big border guy, and he was some of those things, but he's changed to where now the left party has left him.
Sure.
And he was too conservative, and so they felt like they needed to go the extra step.
Well, everyone in Tennessee used to be a Democrat.
Yeah.
And so the Democrat Party was very strong in Tennessee. People's ideology.
Except for my daddy.
Ideology didn't change,
you're
in
right.
Tennessee. I mean, we still believe the same thing we have, and you were talking north to south and West Tennessee
Absolutely.
and Middle Tennessee. We're very conservative, and we're Christian-based. We're faith-based here in the state of Tennessee, thank God. But the Democrat Party has moved so far to the left, and in my opinion, what you've seen whenever he was absolutely, in my opinion, thrown off the ballot.
I agree.
I mean, he didn't want to go. He went kicking and screaming, and he was thrown off the ballot. And what you've seen the Democrat Party finally successfully taken over by the far left, and they have hijacked the Democrat Party at this point to where even those who elected Joe Biden have no voice, and anyone who was left as a moderate, they don't want you in their party anymore.
That's right.
I can't remember and this is what happens. You guys saw we sat here for about 30 minutes while Mike was finishing up. We got to talking. I can't remember if we discussed this on the RNC podcast on air or off, but I don't like if I were a Democrat, if as a Republican, if what they did to our party and just said, okay, all of a sudden you all have chosen Donald Trump to be our candidate, but here is Joe Blow, and now he's going to be your candidate, and we don't get any say, we don't get any vote.
Oh, yeah.
I'd be kicking and screaming.
Well, especially when they rigged the primaries. Like, Gavin Newsom wanted to run. Gavin Newsom wanted to run in the primaries. JFK Jr. wanted to run in the primaries.
Yeah.
Like, there was people out there that legitimately wanted to challenge Biden. They hit him away. They changed the rules.
Yeah.
They made it so nobody could run. They sued to keep Kennedy off the ballots.
That's right.
And then
when
he actually had to put his head up, like, here's the thing, the Democrats would have been in much better shape if they would have, if they say they want to save democracy, if they would have let the Democratic primary be Democratic and had debates.
Correct.
Joe Biden would have been exposed a year ago.
Correct.
That's right.
Gavin Newsom would have been their nominee. And honestly, at the end of the day, I wouldn't vote for Gavin Newsom, but he would have been a much better candidate.
Yeah.
And so the thing about it is, by subverting democracy in their primary system, they set themselves up and they dug themselves in the hole that they're in today.
Right.
And they're stuck with Kamala Harris.
Harris wasn't their first pick.
No.
Gavin Newsom was there at the debate, and people may not know this. He was behind the scenes. You can fact check this if you want to. He was there. He was getting ready to take the reins, but it was about to divide the Democratic Party. That's what was fixing to happen. They were going to split, and they were going to lose a lot of the vote. So they did a political experiment. It's never been done before. When they removed a candidate off the ballot, they had to put a replacement. They thought Gavin Newsom was going in. There were a lot of people in the conservative realm and the Republican Party been saying, hey, Biden's not going to be on the ticket. This is not going to happen. They started saying this a year ago. Yeah. People were saying this, and so we're really not surprised. What we were surprised about is how late in the game they waited. I thought they would do it ahead of time. We've never had a debate, I don't think ever. I mean, you can check me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we've had a debate before a convention ever before.
Never.
We had one before. All this was being, they were planning this out. These people sit in offices, Darryl. They sit in offices and they figure out ways. They're like little bean counters in some corporations, and they figure out ways to maneuver and to manipulate the media, to manipulate what's going on in corporations with fuel prices and things like that, and they make themselves rich. That's what happens.
Absolutely.
Not to put you on the spot, but do you have a prediction? Your county's one of the more Republican counties.
Yes.
Any prediction on? I mean, obviously, I think it's safe to say Trump's going to win that county, but do you see it? Do you see it shifting? He's like, I think I'm out of it.
The phones are lighting up.
I'll put money on that. Yeah. I'll put money on Lawrence County, Tennessee.
How big of a spread do you want?
Yeah, that's what I'm asking. Is
I'll put money on my county too.
Yeah.
Well, so I think that a lot of people, and what I've been trying to appeal to, and Jerrod and I both, we work in drug rehab. We also are big in the Republican Party and being active in that. But one of the things I've been trying to do is I've been trying to extend the olive branch to Democrats. Yeah. And say, guess what? Your party's left you. We're not mad at you over that.
Right.
You know what? They're trying to divide this country. We are really not that divided as human beings.
Correct.
You know what? We all I don't care if you're Democrat, Republican, you want to pay less for eggs. You want to pay less for a loaf of bread. You don't want to pay. No one wants to pay more. And if that were true, why don't you just hand them more money? Why don't you just give more money?
Listen, nobody was bitching.
Right.
Nobody was carrying on.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I keep going back to this, but when Donald Trump was at the helm, we saw things change and we went, we can live with this.
Yeah.
And people were going, that's amazing. I never really thought it could be this way again. I thought we had moved past this. Well, he just has a little bit of a different idea about how things should be done, and he's a businessman. And
that's the kicker.
He made some things happen, and all of a sudden, we as American people, and I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it's the whole gamut. We're all able to live better.
Right.
Who doesn't want that?
Right.
Apparently, a lot of people would rather struggle because I don't get it.
Well, what surprises me is, and I'm a Christian. I'm unapologetic. I'm not apologizing. But what surprises me is how many Christians will vote, and they'll vote against their core beliefs. And the Democrat Party their policies have moved far away. Democrats, if you're ever talking with a Democrat and you're debating one of them, they're going to try to attack on personality type. And so I always go back to this. I don't vote according to personality. You know what? Trump said something that I don't agree with, or he talked too much in a meeting. You know what? Really, I just don't care. But as a Christian, I was confronted on this last night on a radio show. A Democrat asked me, said, well, how can a Christian vote for Donald Trump? And I said, well, I can tell you how. It's his policies. Who would have ever thought in a million years, 12, 15 years ago, that Donald Trump would have been the man single-handedly responsible for overturning Roe versus Wade?
Yeah.
Who would have thought that in 2006? If someone would have told you that, you would have laughed out loud.
Right.
We wouldn't have seen it coming. I'm not looking at his life, maybe according to the way some people believe it's been a train wreck. Whose life hasn't been? Who hasn't lived their life and had some huge mistakes? But you know what I believe, and I believe I'm talking to a bunch of faith-based guys here. When we get to heaven, your personality won't get you in the door.
No.
Your policies will. So what you live your life, what's your core go back to every day, that's what gets you in the gate. And I think Donald Trump, his policies line up. And I think he's a different guy than he was 15 years ago.
I think he's a different guy than he was when he took office the last time.
I agree.
Oh, yeah.
I really do.
I think he's a different guy since he got shot.
I'm going to tell you right now.
I think he's a different guy since he got shot.
There's some crazy stuff out there that's not so crazy to me. When you go through things in your life, if it doesn't change who you are, you're not paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
And I see a whole, I saw some stuff that happened toward the end of the campaign and just before he took office with the evangelicals that kind of made me go, okay, whatever. He's a different man now.
Yeah, I agree.
He's a different person. And I personally believe that he'll be a better president this time than he ever was before. And I'm not saying he was a bad president.
Yeah.
I think he's going to go in and he knows the town now. He was a
Oh,
business
yeah,
guy.
He knows the rules.
He
of
was
the
a
game.
business guy, and he went in there and tried to run like a business.
Now he knows.
There's a lot of mistakes he made. He's going to be much more
That's
efficient,
right.
much more deliberate. But I also think his personality is different too. I think his
is.
management style will be much more efficient.
Well, I think the
I
other thing
agree.
that people overlook is he wasn't a politician. So when he started building out cabinets, it was a lot of people in his ear saying, this is who you need, this is who
Right.
you need. And so when people were like, oh, well, why did his cabinet leave? They weren't used to working with him.
Right.
No.
Most people in D.C. aren't used to working Donald Trump hours
Yeah.
or to his style. So I do believe now as he goes back, he's had time to, okay, I know this person better, and I know that person better, and I know what they bring to the table, and he's able to make some opinions on his own. So I think that's something I'm really looking forward to. And before we start to wrap this thing up, because we've already done our victory lap around our goal to shut this thing off. You got some stuff, and that's why I was saying I wanted to make sure I gave you some time because you told a story a minute ago about one of your Iraq trips, and I want to make sure we get that on here because it was just
I absolutely want
anybody who knows Darryl Worley knows how conservative he is. But to hear him talk about whether or not this goes a certain way, at the end of the day, it's all got to be unity. And so talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, first of all, I want to just backtrack for a second.
Yeah.
Is when we got through with Jerrod's story, we kind of took off in a different direction. But,
It
I
happens.
mean, it honestly, it was about the same thing that we came here to talk about. So we were going in the right direction anyway. But I mean, the part that we didn't really linger on, and I don't want to get too down deep in this, but the poor guy that passed, I know your heart. I know why you got into
I'll tell
rehab.
why.
I mean, it's up to you. I'm not asking for that.
I will.
But
my mother was a heroin addict.
Okay.
And my grandparents raised me. And I got in recovery when I was about 21 years old. And my mother, by that time, was in recovery. Like, I never saw my mother from the time I was 3 years old until I was about 20. And she had started a recovery center in Southern California. So I grew up in Pittsburgh with my grandparents. And I actually went to work for my mother's rehab in Southern California. That's how I started. And now, by that time, I left there, started my own, worked a couple other places, started my own by the time that all this happened. But that's actually how I got into drug rehab business. Was my mother was a heroin addict when I was growing up, and I had addiction problems. I got clean when I was 21.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, and I think we've talked about this before, so I'm not really going.
Yeah.
But the guy was he in detox?
Yes.
Listen, I can't even begin to get in the same wheelhouse with this guy as far as his knowledge of the rehab and recovery. But I can tell you this, like, I just lost a couple years back. I lost one of my best friends. We grew up together, loved him. I mean, we were tight, and I would have done anything for him. He died in jail in Hardin County, and he died because he was detoxing without detox.
Yeah.
Wow.
Alcohol. I mean, it's very unfortunate.
That's exactly
my
what got
heart
him too. It was
my heart
vodka.
goes out to the guy that passed away. But
Of course it does.
yeah, my heart goes out. Alcohol detox is very, very, very dangerous. You know
Yes.
what I mean? And there's a lot of factors, and it happens. It happens in jail. It happens in prison. It happens at rehabs. And it's very unfortunate.
Mhm.
And
But I bring this up to say one thing. You didn't get into business just to make a whole bunch of money.
no.
And you cared about that, even though you might not have known the guy's name and you might not have been there to sign his entrance forms or whatever that is, because you got you're running the business.
Yeah.
You cared about every person that was,
Absolutely.
and I know that's why I wanted Jerrod to come in here and share this, because I know him.
Yeah.
I mean, I know him all the way, and I knew, David Morgan has preached to me and Jerrod a lot, and he's done us a lot of good. He's a great human being, and like I said before, our little thing over in Lawrence County is his brainchild, his dream, his vision.
Yeah.
We just got involved to try to help him bring that to fruition, and we've got a full house over there in West Point, like I said.
And speaking of that, I'm gonna stop you for just a second. We're gonna pull it right there. If you're watching on YouTube or any of those things, we'll have links to where you can find out more information about this facility or any of those things. If you're listening, you can Google it, find out more information, because I know this is something very near and dear to all of y'all.
My little brother was there for almost a year and a half.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Changed his life. Oh,
Sorry for cutting you off.
No.
If I didn't, we would forget to plug that and get people to look.
Those are really the two things. The fact that people can see a situation like that and care so little about the people involved. I mean, think about the family of the guy that passed. How this whole thing that just got literally thrown out because it was almost comical. I bet you that family didn't think the whole thing was comical, and they had to go live through all that. Nobody cares when it comes to the almighty dollar.
Oh, yeah.
That breaks my heart, man. And I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not trying to tell people who to vote for, and I'm getting ready to tell you why. But I do ask people, like I say to my daughter every single day, use your brain. Savannah, just use your brain. Dad, I don't blah, 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 blah. Savannah, use your brain. That's what it's there for. If you just let it lay there dormant, it'll just turn to mush. Use your brain. Look at all these situations. Look at what we've talked about here today, and you make the decision. And so I don't get beat up a whole lot with this political stuff because I don't do a whole lot of it. I'm not really a political guy. I got thrown into that arena when I was, doing the Have You Forgotten thing, and it's not even a political song, man. It's a song about remembering the people who sacrificed for us as American people. And so I was telling Travis, at the end of the day, I just wish people would. I know radical left people that will scream and holler at me. You can't disagree with them. You can't. Used to, you could disagree, and you just sit there and have a good conversation. And I ain't going to sit here and tell you that I haven't been swayed before and thought, I didn't really know that. Well, if it's factual, tell me, because I'm not. Right. I don't consider myself to be stupid. Maybe you can help me figure something out. I can't stand these people that'll scream and holler at me that won't get up off their sorry ass and go vote. They won't even vote. This is the most important election of our lives. And I've just was talking to a guy a couple days ago that said, this is the election that could start a civil war. And I went, absolutely. But my brain had only thought of it like if my side loses, it could go either way.
It could.
That's right.
Absolutely.
It could go either way. It could just, and don't please, I shouldn't even probably spoke that. My point to you is this. I'm going to just tell you a horrible story that where I learned an incredible lesson. I was standing in a circle of officers, not high-ranking officers, but guys, captains and the such in Afghanistan. Yes, and they were standing there discussing the fact that I think he was pretty much the upper guy in this circle. And these are guys that go out with their teams and are actually flinging lead. They're in firefights. They're doing patrols. They got guys getting killed every day. And this guy, they're just standing around smoking cigarettes, talking, and, getting ready for the next whatever it is. And the main man says, well, just got my word from home that my paycheck came in, and I just took this is when Barack Obama was president. Just took a $1,500 a month pay cut. And it just flew all over me, you know, because I'm looking at those guys thinking, we're here for morale. That's all we can do. We can hope, you know, the big high brass would say, if you guys do a good job while you're here, the next 6 months will be easier for us. If you suck, it's not going to be so easy. That's some of the language that they would say. So morale's important. And I'm looking at that going, are you kidding? So that night, I go out on the stage and I throw out a few things, my feelings about Barack Obama and these people taking pay cuts. And I should have known better. It just chapped me because I have family members out there that I know are getting the same treatment, and they're right in the middle of that mess. And so after the show, we had a long drug out meet and greet line where people were just coming through like a cattle call, and they sign a picture, say howdy, shake hands, and then they're on. And here comes the next one. And this guy came up. He was very kind. He said to me, hey, I want to say something to you about your presentation. I loved your show. I love your songs. Been following you for a long, long time. Love Have You Forgotten. And I would imagine this guy was probably leaned a little bit to the left side, probably voted Democrat and what have you. But he said to me, it might be important. This is just a note, man. And he said, I don't want you to get mad at me. I don't want to hurt your feelings. I'm telling you, I love you. But he said some of the people out here on the battlefield like Barack Obama. Some of them probably voted for him. And he said, after all, this is, full-on American military. And he goes, so I'm just saying to you, you might want to watch your comments because I know you, that in your heart, you don't want to hurt anybody that's out here fighting because we're all fighting for the same thing. We're all fighting for this beautiful freedom that we enjoy. We're fighting for the democracy. And so it really, really, really made me think, and I think that's important to throw out here. Because we have this particular topic today, and it's a little more political than what I will even usually delve into. I do not think it's wrong for me to do anything that I can to educate people about what's going on in our government. And so that's why we did this. And I also like to win. And if I need to put this out there so that nobody's confused, the biggest party will be at my house if Donald Trump wins the election. I can tell you that. And I say that and I believe that because I truly believe that that's what's best for the American people and our nation. No other reason. My point to you is, because of what that guy said to me about the battlefield, I have absolutely no problem with you feeling however you feel about it. That's the beauty that we enjoy in the great United States of America, and God bless America and that way of life. If you win, you win. Yeah. And I ain't gonna be mad at you. I'm not gonna not speak to you no more. That's all part of this. And I can remember when it wasn't, when we would laugh and make jokes with each other about, it's just like Tennessee whooping Alabama again.
Oh, that was good, wasn't it?
I hate to bring that up, but
don't hate to bring that up. Bring it up all you want to.
We sure did, and I mean, to me, it used to be like that. It's like, I got buddies that live right there on the Alabama line where we kind of live there too, and we'd see each other and we'd make jokes or whatever, but we didn't. Man, the last couple of elections, it's like people are ready to square off and do the old duel in the street thing, and I'm like, let's don't do that. Let's keep America safe and sound, and so
appreciate the passion on both sides.
Exactly, man. I mean, it don't have to come to that. We got to get back to pulling together instead of drawing apart. I personally believe that's the worst thing that's going on in this nation right now, and I hate it, but I don't.
Yeah, got to unify.
Don't know for sure what to do about it. So. Thank you guys so much for taking time to do this today. Oh man, I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
Stuff. It's
probably too much.
It's interesting, and I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna stop.
Please,
that's where I think. Well, it's just frustrating because for me, I was worried this would happen with this episode.
What's that?
We can joke about Biden being the old man eating ice cream. We can joke about Trump being a buffoon or whatever people want to joke about, or Kamala Harris can't answer a question in 30 minutes.
That would have never been brought up if you hadn't just said it.
That's why
I
had to get it
glad
out,
you
because
threw
you
it
brought
in.
it up a couple times earlier and then didn't
That's
bring it
right.
out.
Well, it wasn't a joke.
It wasn't a joke.
He was asking me to find something positive.
But
That's all I could come up with. I'm sorry.
the problem is today, I had my sticker on because I went and voted this morning before
Oh,
I came
good
over
for you,
from
man.
Paris.
I'm gonna try to vote 2 or 3
But-
times. And I swear to you, I believe I
You're
can
in
get
the wrong party.
Well, hey, why can't we do it too?
But this is the thing that I was worried about with today when I kind of got filled in a little bit on the story is now this is personal. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do.
That's
why he's here today.
That's why this is here.
That's why
this
he's here
was not
today.
an opportunity to take shots or pick apart or make fun of.
No.
This was a true story.
Real life.
That
Sounds like life.
sounds like life.
Sounds like life. That's
and
why
it hit home a little harder than I wanted. That's why a couple times I was just staring at you going, man, can I hug you? I mean, because I'd be pissed. I mean, and I'm sure you have been. I'm sure you've been there. And
he's handled it very well.
Lots of
gosh,
prayer,
man.
lots of
Yeah.
Amen.
No, I applaud you for that. And even knowing your story now that's the reason why you got into it, I think that's important. And so I do want to make sure we wrap on Darryl's note of
He went to
Let's be
lunch
American.
with us one day to talk us out of doing a rehab center. I just had to throw that in there.
so
Go ahead.
Well,
I'm sorry.
I don't know. We'll wrap on that. I think it's been a great episode, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We appreciate you guys listening or watching on whatever platform
Yeah.
you're on.
Thank y'all so much.
Continue to tell people about it, and we'll keep continuing to put microphones in front of people and talking. Go ahead.
Before we cut,
Okay.
and you could use this later, cut it out, whatever. I got a great Darryl Worley story that
Oh.
Daryl will never tell you.
Okay.
And when he was
you
talking,
know I like these.
when
Go
he
ahead.
was talking about being over in the war zone and talking to the guys taking bullets, Daryl and I used to hang out a lot together.
Yep.
We see each other occasionally. We used to hang out a lot. And I've walked down the street in Nashville with Darryl Worley. And I'll tell you what, and the military guys are drawn to him.
Yeah.
And I've seen this more than once, but there's one in particular. We were walking into AMVETS or something. We were walking into one of the veteran organizations. Guy comes up to him, and he said, and when Darryl was talking about working with the guys that had bullets flying around him, he said, you know what? And I ain't going to mention the other names, but you guys could guess. He goes, these other guys come over on a USO tour, and they go to Saudi Arabia. They go to Dubai. They play for 25,000. They play for 50,000 people. Said, you know the difference with Darryl Worley? And the guy's sitting there talking to me, and I'm walking in with him. He goes, you know the difference with this guy? He said, this guy came out, and he said he'd play for 35 guys. Yeah. He'd play for 8 guys. He said, here's the difference. Those other guys went for the CNN cameras, for the country music cameras to put them on TV and them say they did a USO tour. He said, you know what? They said Darryl Worley went to places that CNN didn't. Yeah. And they took and he went there for the soldiers. And I will tell you, I have seen guys that were Marines that getting to shake his hand.
Yeah, absolutely.
Would bring a tear to his eye because he was the guy that actually went out that was for the soldiers, not for the cameras, not for the glory, not because it was going to look good on their next album cover. Right. And I'll tell you what, I've heard more than one guy say that, and I guarantee you Darryl would never tell that. Darryl ain't going to tell that story, but I'll tell you, I have seen it. So that's a fact about Darryl.
I called my manager that day as soon as I left her, and I said, there's a guy over here at this place we need to hire.
Dude, he is, but I'm just telling you, there's a lot of guys out there that think that about Darryl Worley. And there's a reason because, like I said, he did it for them. He didn't do it for the
We never wanted any accolades from it, and we didn't want pay. I almost turned down the per diem. That was my part of giving back to those guys. And I think it was the right way to do it. I could tell you stories about how the other artists did it, and I'm sure that they probably reaped benefits. But I didn't want benefits from that, ever. And that guy knew what he was talking about.
And I don't want to say something, and they can cut this out. This might not be true. But I don't want to say something that ain't true. But if I had to guess, and this is no data, this is Jerrod Menz guessing, I bet you Darryl Worley has done more USO tours than any other living person. Like, there's probably, because all the guys that did the Second World War stuff and lived over there, they've all passed away. you have probably done more shows than just about any other living. Like Bob Hope's probably done more than you.
Well, see, the thing about when you lump it into USO, that's the interesting thing about what we did is that on a lot of our tours, there was a USO affiliate, but
you out past the USO.
Well, we traveled with the Sergeant Major of the Army.
Yeah.
And the Sergeant Major of the Army's job is to go to the war zone, go to where the war is being fought, and find out what those people need. And he goes back to Washington and lobbies to get that sent to them and delivered there. And then it gets airdropped right in there to them. And so if you watch my documentary, they took a lot of stuff away and wouldn't let me use a lot of the footage because they said, oh, no, you can't put that in there. If people see that, we'll never get another celebrity to go to the war zone. and I said, yeah, but they're the USO side of it. Yeah, but they said, we don't care that. You can't use that. I got stuff on handheld you would not believe. And we would go back in the evening and play the big stage with the USO show. But all day long from way before daylight, man, we hardly slept. We'd be there 15, 18 days. The Sergeant Major of the Army came to me the very first day out in 2002, and he said, Darryl, we asked you to do this because you have a little bit of a unique situation. You got you and one other guy, and y'all are playing them old flat-top guitars. And he said, we can take y'all with us on every place we go. And I said, you don't ever have to ask me again. Just tell us what time to be ready, and we'll climb on them birds with you, and off we go. And we did it every day. So there was, if you count every time we landed at a missile silo where there was 4 guys, if you count that a show, there's a lot of them.
Let me tell you what.
There's a lot of them.
Let me tell you what. I've been with you when we run into those guys, and dude, there wasn't much you could have done more for those guys.
They don't
than
forget.
Just somebody caring enough to come.
They don't forget.
They might not have been a country western fan or whatever.
Right.
But you know what? Somebody came to them.
That's right.
Wasn't just on the big stage, wasn't in Dubai, wasn't in Saudi Arabia. Dude, I'm going to tell you, man, I felt the love from those guys towards you.
It's unbelievable.
And it's legit. Like, it's legit.
It is.
You impacted them.
It is the grandest thing that the good Lord has ever bestowed upon me was to have that opportunity. It was the most surreal experiences of my life. Wouldn't change it for nothing. And I'd do it all again for nothing.
And that sound. I think that's a great spot to end.
Sounds Like Life with Darryl Worley is a Bluesfire media production hosted by Darryl Worley and Travis McLeese, produced and edited by Mike Murphy and Sam Hudson, lighting by Micah Powell, set design by Sam Hudson, theme song Sounds Like Life to Me by Darryl Worley, executive producers Jeff Lemanowski and Julianne Drennan.